Toronto Police Service Race-Based Data Collection Strategy. Analysis to Action Model. Roadmap to Equity. Introduction. The Toronto Police Service has been on a journey of transformation that is anchored in the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, transparency, and fairness. This is part of our commitment to comprehensive police reform and internal culture change. We are building these principles into all aspects of the service to help repair community trust and commit to our members that the service is a safe, bias-free, and inclusive place to work. A key part of the service's commitment to equity and transparency is the race and identity-based data collection strategy. Calls for action. Work to address systemic discrimination, anti-Black racism, and anti-Indigenous discrimination started long before the race and identity-based data collection policy and strategy, and we want to acknowledge the calls for action that have led us here today. Systemic racism occurs when institutions or systems create or maintain racial inequity, often as a result of hidden institutional biases in policies, practices, and procedures that privilege some groups and disadvantage others. It is the normal way of doing things that are often unintended or unconscious that have a negative impact on racialized people. That includes when members of Indigenous, Black, and racialized groups are singled out for greater scrutiny or different treatment. Systemic racism exists across all Canadian institutions, including law enforcement, and requires a cross-sector approach. We are committed to make this change. Our data has an equity purpose, and this represents a fundamental shift from how race data has been used by law enforcement in the past. We recognize that this data has been misused by the Toronto Police Service in the past. We will use this data to help us work more deeply with communities. Race-based data collection policy. On January 1st, 2020, all police services in Ontario began collecting race data in provincial use of force reports. New procedures and training were introduced to members to help them understand the RBDC strategy and its purpose in eliminating systemic racism and advancing racial equity. We recognize that 2020 was unique from other years. This data serves as a baseline to help us understand our progress going forward. The issues we are addressing, anti-Black racism, policing, accountability, and reform, remain as relevant as ever for the citizens of Toronto. The changes we are making are a reflection of the priorities highlighted in the feedback we received from thousands of Torontonians. From focus groups to town hall meetings, we heard from communities about what it will take to earn their trust. We will use this data with community and member input to identify what is driving disparities and to develop meaningful solutions. Data will not be used to further stigmatize communities or deepen the divide that already exists. We are motivated to make cultural and systemic change and to be better for our communities. The Toronto Police Services Board's policy on race-based data collection, analysis, and public reporting governs how the service should approach this important work to identify, monitor, and eliminate potential systemic racism and racial bias, identify equitable service delivery that can contribute to understanding and best practice, advance the delivery of police services that advance the fair treatment of every person by supporting the development of equitable policies, procedures, services, and initiatives, preserve the dignity of individuals and communities, and enhance trend analysis, professional development, and public accountability. The policy also governs that the implementation of race-based data by the service should not result in the stigmatization or stereotyping of any communities, must have regard to the sensitive nature of the information that is collected so that the service can protect the privacy of the individuals with whom it comes in contact, not to be used for performance management or to identify individual service members, and to be a tool to identify trends that contribute to professional development and organizational change. Professional standards and public complaint processes that are required by the Police Services Act are not impacted by the board's policy. Our approach. What are we doing differently? Our approach is in line with police reforms currently being implemented, including the Toronto Police Services Board's 81 recommendations for police reform and the recommendations outlined in the Independent Civilian Review into Missing Person Investigations Report, Missing and Missed. The analysis is led by external and internal subject matter experts in race data, equity, police data, and informed by engagement. Findings on racial disparities on their own do not tell us how, why, or where they exist. We're using our internal data like never before to better understand use of force and strip searches. Our approach to analysis is a cycle, not a linear process. It takes into account the fact that decisions to use force or to search a person are made in situations that are unique, complex, and fluid. The strategy is informed through engagement from the Community Advisory Panel that includes 12 diverse residents from Black, Indigenous, and other racialized communities, as well as youth representatives. The members bring expertise in community organizing, academics, and social services. To ensure our work is transparent, the analysis process, practices, and findings are independently reviewed by Dr. Lauren Foster and Dr. Les Jacobs, leading experts in race and identity-based data collection and analysis with a human right lens. Taking action towards police reform. In addition to the race and identity-based data strategy, since 2020, we have been making changes to help our members understand the lived experiences of diverse communities. Through our community partnerships, Neighborhood Community Officer Program, models for alternative service delivery, and work with experts in human rights, we are working towards building trust, developing relationships, and changing our existing structures. Our Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights Unit supports the service's modernization efforts and development of the service-wide equity strategy. We continue to conduct an academic review of our training curriculum and have hired equity and inclusion training specialists who design and lead training, including anti-Black racism, the Indigenous experience, annual in-service training program, and training for coach officers and new recruits. Our roadmap to equity model is our commitment to continue driving change, our commitment to keep working to analyze our practices, measuring our progress, and looking to what's next. It's what grounds the race-based data collection strategy and is our promise to keep working towards equitable outcomes. It's grounded in 5 main sections. The first section is policing practices. The service is taking a phased approach to data collection, analyses, and reporting so we can learn, improve, and expand our efforts in a sustainable way. We began with use of force and strip searches in January 2020 and included arrests, charges, diversions, and apprehensions in 2021. As the strategy progresses, we will look to incorporate how members of the public self-identify. The second section is measurement. We cannot understand or change what we do not measure. We undertook a comprehensive review of our data systems to see how we can adapt our existing systems to collect this information. The Race and Identity-Based Data Analysis Framework presents ideas for consideration based on input from communities, our members, and external stakeholders to inform our approach to analyzing race-based data. The framework that lays out principles, objectives, and methodological approaches for the analysis of different interactions between police officers and communities. It represents different complementary approaches to understanding any potential racial disparities. Quantitative analysis to identify potential racial disparities, and qualitative analysis to uncover the assumptions, policies, procedures, and/or practices that may be contributing to any disparities. The framework guides a series of separate analysis plans for specific interactions that take into account that particular data and contributing factors relevant to each type of interaction. The framework guides a series of separate analysis plans for specific interactions that take into account the particular data and contributing factors relevant to each type of interaction. Before analysis is completed on the data, all personal information that could identify an officer or subject is removed. The third section is outcomes. Our analysis seeks to identify disproportionalities and areas for organizational change. The outcome for use of force and strip search data are based on data collected in 2020. They will serve as a baseline as we continue to work on subsequent analysis and releases to understand trends and changes over time. Analysis of arrests, apprehensions, and diversions will start in Q3 2022. Reflect and engage. Engagement is at the heart of the strategy. Meaningful engagements with communities, members, and stakeholders take time. There needs to be a shared buy-in and understanding on how we are treating the data. Throughout the strategy, we engage with communities, the Community Advisory Panel, members, and academic partners to build trusted relationships needed to guide the service. We work together to understand root causes to inform partnerships and be innovative and effective in developing areas for action to make changes. Take action. We have leveraged our data to better understand our impact. Our data is only one part of this work. In our commitment to police reform, we are undertaking systems and organizational culture change, including through our investment in information management and strategies led by our People and Culture pillar. We then proceed back through the cycle, starting at policing practices. The next set of videos will take us through each section of the cycle as they apply to Phase 1.